There is something every man feels but few admit. No matter how much you adjust, please, or prove yourself, there is an invisible point where everything collapses. A moment when interest fades and distance appears without warning. That silence isn't caused by something you did wrong. It happens because, without realizing it, you violated instinctive codes that govern attraction long before language existed. These codes operate beneath awareness and act before intention. They are ancient, automatic, and ruthless. Evolution wired them to respond to resilience, direction, and stability, not charm or effort. Attraction begins before words, before logic, before conscious choice enters the room. Modern men believe attraction is built through kindness and consistency, but desire responds to something quieter and more primitive: your ability to remain whole under emotional pressure. This is where most men get lost. They try to build desire through logic, not realizing instinct is in control. Every anxious message, every attempt to please, every sacrificed posture is read before intention can explain itself. Because these codes are invisible, confusion follows. Frustration grows. Powerlessness sets in. The truth is simple. A woman does not react to what you do. She reacts to what you project. The game is psychological and energetic. What she feels in your presence matters more than perfectly chosen words. Most men repeat the same cycle, trying to be noticed, chosen, and understood. They become predictable, anxious, emotionally obvious. Meanwhile, a small group operates at another level. They decoded the hidden architecture that determines who is desired, respected, or ignored. These men do not chase or compete. They do not beg, they become inevitable. They understand that attraction is structured, not random, and that presence speaks before behavior. What follows is that structure. 3 secrets of female nature so fundamental that once seen, everything changes. Your silence, posture, timing, and interpretation of distance all gain meaning. You stop reacting to behavior and begin controlling presence. These are not tricks or lines. They are instinctive mechanisms that define value before awareness even forms. Stay until the end and you'll see the structure separating the forgotten from the remembered, the ignored from the desired, the ordinary from the inevitable. From this point on, your perception changes, and more importantly, so does hers. Secret 1 begins with silent selection. There is an imperceptible instant when a woman decides who you are to her. Not when you speak, but when your presence enters her emotional field before conversation exists. In that interval, she reads energy, stability, and structure. Most men fail because they try to build value after they've already been classified. They try to impress after weakness is projected. They explain after anxiety is revealed. The game begins long before consciousness participates, which is why disinterest often feels sudden and confusing. The anxiety to be noticed is a silent confession. Talking too much, replying too fast, filling empty space, or justifying your existence all register as a request for approval. A woman does not respond to words. She responds to the emotional movement behind them. Urgency reads as neediness. Proving value reads as insecurity. That is why strategic silence outweighs elaborate speech. Speaking less is not mystery. It is emotional authority. The man who observes commands more presence than the man who pleads. Evolutionary filters operate in milliseconds, reading stability and self-control. She notices breathing, facial tension, emotional speed, and bodily agitation long before meaning is processed. React too fast and instability appears. Rush to be understood and need is exposed. Anticipate her approval and submission is felt without a word being spoken. Emotional neutrality is not a trick. It is a rebuilt presence. Pausing before responding, holding a neutral face, and reducing agitation are all read as strength. What truly alters attraction is not stability alone. It is the absence of the need to be chosen. A man who does not seek approval shifts the entire emotional field. He becomes an enigma, not by intention but because his energy is not directed toward pleasing. Curiosity forms, and curiosity is the first stage of desire. Do not aim to be likable, aim to be integral. A firm opinion outweighs emotional elasticity created to impress. Anxiety instantly reduces attraction. It signals unpredictability and lack of structure. This response is instinctive, not conscious. That is why practicing interaction without the goal of seduction matters. When emotion is removed from the outcome, the body learns neutrality. This neutral state carried into real encounters creates magnetism. It removes the internal noise that instinct reads as fragility. First impressions are silent protocols. Posture, gaze, cadence, and space define the reading made before the first sentence. The man who masters the first seconds does not introduce himself. He imposes presence. This is where silent selection ends and stability is confirmed. Secret 2 begins with testing. Every woman looks for the point where a man breaks. Not in crisis, but in small provocations and subtle tension. These tests appear as silence, teasing, or casual remarks. To her, they are emotional screening, not attacks. She is checking if you remain whole. The ordinary man reacts personally. The grounded man understands the test. This difference decides who becomes forgettable and who becomes a reference. The fastest way to lose authority is justification. Over-explaining, correcting, or defending intentions signals emotional submission. When you try to control her opinion, dependence is revealed. Not weakness, but fragility created by the need for validation. Strength is shown through light humor or silence. Both communicate that you have nothing to prove and nothing to lose. Short, firm responses shift the dynamic. They refuse emotional games without aggression and quietly elevate your position. Expectation breaks create interest. She expects defense and reactivity. When your posture remains intact, an internal shift occurs. This shift is attraction beginning. Not coldness, but self-mastery. Control of the internal world always outweighs external force. Imperturbability is trained. A pause before responding breaks impulsivity and builds presence in real time. Neutral expression increases perceived dominance. It is not emptiness. It is the absence of chaos. Nervous smiles, darting eyes, and rushed speech signal instability. Calm stillness creates safety and respect. Solidity cannot be faked. It is embodied. When your emotional center holds, her behavior adjusts around it. Every test is a portal. Passed correctly, it strengthens attraction instead of weakening it. The triad that stabilizes attraction is simple. Neutral face, slow, firm voice, short responses. This pattern organizes emotional chaos without force. It is not performance, it is discipline. Each time you apply it, your presence becomes heavier and harder to shake. If you understand this secret, you see tests as gateways. They are not obstacles, but invitations to demonstrate control. Seduction is not about memorized lines. It is about reprogramming how you process female behavior and tension. When perception changes, tension becomes advantage. Presence becomes magnetism. Control becomes natural. Secret 3 begins with expansion. Attraction collapses when a man lives in waiting. Waiting for approval, interest, or permission. Waiting energy communicates orbiting. It shows you are reacting to her world instead of leading your own. A woman senses when a man lacks direction. Kindness and intelligence cannot compensate for reactive energy. Many men enter relationships already defeated, adapting instead of defining pace, direction, and environment. Leadership is revealed in small details, not grand decisions. Time, place, tone, and cadence expose whether you have a vector. Delegating direction signals drift. Femininity seeks expansion, but expansion requires something that leads it. Leading is not controlling. It is establishing direction calmly and without force. Control comes from insecurity. Leadership comes from certainty. One repels, the other attracts. Trajectory matters more than current status. Movement matters more than arrival. You do not need perfection. You need forward motion. Stagnation is instinctively repulsive. Secret 3 deepens with motion. A man who waits to be chosen quietly dissolves his value.